So inevitably, when you talk about human population growth, you always kind of relate it to those resources, right? And so, and that means we have poverty. What I'm really getting at is with the rising or associated with our population growth, we have poverty. And the simple conclusion to this would be that population growth has caused this poverty. But there's another way of thinking about this. Maybe poverty has resulted in people having more kids. You didn't think about that one, but that's the alternative idea here. And well, we're going to explore both of these ideas. Well, the one is pretty self-explanatory, but the other one, we're going to explore it a little bit and we'll see what kind of conclusions we come up with. So we have people. We have some people that you need to know about. Malthus, he was a person who felt that he said we always had excess offspring, and that we were going to have exponential population growth. And he was a pessimist. He said, "Oh my God, we're all going to die," and maybe he's right. Actually, believe it or not, if you look at, if you think of this from a purely ecological perspective, you could say that humans, as our numbers rise, we become this wonderful resource for other life, right? And as an ecologist, I would say that, it's going to be exploited. And what's going on right now? COVID. So you could argue that, this is exactly as predicted. When we look at this, we say, well, human population growth is limited by disease, lack of food, that's what a famine is, and social constraints, what society decides. So I said that we have this idea that poverty is caused by an increasing population. But then there are other people, Karl Marx in particular, who says, no, that's not it. It's not caused by the population. The poverty is what causes the rapid rate of growth. And so if we look and we think about sort of exploitation of people, and we think about that J-shaped curve, right at the bottom of where it started going up, we had the Industrial Revolution. And so because of the Industrial Revolution, the idea is that maybe then people were being exploited, taken advantage of, and because of this, they're having more children. And that's Karl Marx's idea. So how do you deal with that? If that is the problem, what do you have to do? You have to treat people with respect and justly. And so people need to be trusted and treated in a just manner. So another guy, Pimentel, he was a bug guy. He was an entomologist. And he said that by 2100, the year 2100, the Earth would have 12 billion miserable humans on it. Hopefully that isn't going to be the case. All right, so ecology likes for us to have, likes to use mathematical modeling. And so we have this idea of environmental impact. Environmental impact equals the population size times the affluence of the population times the amount of technology. All of these will increase the ecological impact that is experienced by Earth. And so what does that mean? That means the higher your population is, the more developed the country is, that affluence, the more technology you have, it's developed countries again, the larger the amount of resources each person is going to be using. And so we have this other point on this slide, which is slide 6, and it says it's the ecological footprint. And somehow they calculate this stuff, and they come up with numbers, actual numbers for this. I equals PAT, population times affluence times technology, equals ecological impact. But anyway, they have this way of figuring out how much land does every person in any given society, how much land do they use? And it ends up, for people in places like America, you and me, it ends up that's the calculation gave them 9.7 hectares. Now, you probably don't know what a hectare is. Well, do you know what an acre is? Maybe you live in a suburban location here and you say, we've got a half-acre lot, or we have a 1-acre lot. Well, it ends up about approximately 2.5 acres equals a hectare. So if we say 9.7 hectares, it means about 25 acres. That's for you and I. In the developed areas. In developed countries, we have approximately 10 hectares, 9.7. Now, if you look on our picture, I don't mean to pick on Oprah. I could have picked any person. Bezos probably would have been a better choice. But this was done a long time ago. I have a picture of Oprah Winfrey, and then I also have a picture of a village. And if you look at people living in a primitive manner, so that, remember, ecological impact equals population times affluence. They're not affluent. Technology, they don't have technology, equals environmental impact. Well, it ends up their ecological footprint is minuscule compared to ours, a half hectare. So 1.2 acres instead of 25. So the developed countries are responsible for a lot of the problems associated with the world when it comes to ecology because of not so much our population size, but because of our affluence and the technology. Again, so we have population growth benefits. We have, I said, some people, they just think they're just happy, They say, I'm a happy-go-lucky person, and I just can't help but think everything's going to be good. And Jillian Simon, he's right there on the screen. You get his picture of him. That's actually him. He said, don't worry, be happy. They should make a song. Don't worry, be happy. He said it's okay. We're going to have more and more geniuses out there. And he went on to say that there is no evidence that pollution, crime, unemployment, crowding, loss of species will worsen with human population growth. There is evidence. People see what they want to see. There is clearly evidence that is not the case. So when we talk about the problems of the world, there's a lot of countries, especially these developing countries, who say, we're suffering and we didn't even cause the problem. And so these people in these countries, they say that we're getting it all wrong, that the emphasis should be on the inordinate consumption of the developed countries, not so much, population and, what's going on there. So it's a complicated question. That's what it comes down to. All right. So the very first lab that, or I think it's the first, you did the graveyard thing, right? And that was a demographic analysis. So what we did is we said, when are people going to die? And within a population during a period of time, when did they die? And what are the living age groups? So if you have people dying early, you don't have 80 and 90-year-olds, right? But if you have people who are living their life but don't have many babies, you can have different shapes. You have different shapes of the population based on the portion of the population that is, children, teenagers, young adults, middle-aged times versus old. And so when you look at our world, what you find is countries like the U.S. The U.S. has a fairly low birth rate, and we are long-lived. So we have a lot of old people, but we don't have that many children coming on. And I even mentioned China, where they have, at this point, a lot of old people and very few children. But then, in contrast to those two, we have locations in the world where they still have huge numbers of children in the undeveloped countries. Developed countries have lowered their birth rate. Undeveloped countries, not so much. So with the exercise that we did today in lab, in really poor countries, their doubling rate can be 18 years. The population doubles in 18 years. And then in other countries where we have a low birth rate like China, it never doubles. It's going the other direction. And some of you saw that in your simulation. And so as a result of that, because we have the sort of developed rich countries that are using all these resources that are producing very few kids, we have that world, and then we have the people in bad shape who don't have much food or water or whatever. I saw an interview with a boy on TV yesterday. He said, and he lived in like a desert area. He'd said once in his life he had felt rain, seen rain, and just a little bit. Once in his life. He didn't live in Pittsburgh. I can assure you that. So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. But anyway, we have huge challenges to the food supply because even though we have a lot of food, it's not equally distributed, right? And in some ways, how do you get around that? The farmers need to be paid, right? So let me see what the next slide is here. Okay, so I'm going to come back and sort of pick up this same discussion because I need to stop here.